Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Cory Huber with LimitedMagic.com here with Kevin Crimmon with Roguedeckbuilder.com. Say hi, Kevin.
Hello.
Wicked. That's me down in the corner. Hello, everybody. I'm down in the corner. Kevin's got the big screen because he's the big star of the show here. We're going to be reviewing a little bit M15. Start to hit the white cards and move on from there. I don't know if we're going to break it into several videos. We're just going to keep it one long, painfully long video, but we'll might as well get started right now, and then after we'll talk about which packs we're going to pick for the pre-release. And I'm undecided at this point, so this might make or break my choice. Vegas, you ready to start, Kevin?
Yep, let's get this done.
Sweet. Let's start with the Planeswalker. Ajani Steadfast. Big tears streaming down my cheeks because that's Elspeth's cloak in that art.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. Yeah.
So man, flavor maximum already, which is big points for me. So what do you think? It's 4 mana Planeswalker, 1 white, 3 colorless, 4 loyalty, and it's got a +1 that's up to, or until end of turn, up to 1 target creature gets +1/+1, gains first strike, vigilance, and a lifelink. What do you think of that?
It's very similar to the other Ajani's that have been printed as far as pumping up a creature. Not as powerful, I would say. I mean, well, lifelink, first strike, vigilance, for a +1 ability is pretty good.
I think it's
of course, you have to have a target for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have a target for it, it's a very good way to protect your Planeswalker.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just
vigilance
like
is cool because
vigilance
on the block side.
Exactly. So when I first read it through it, I was like, okay, it's like, you know, the worst M13, M14 Ajani. But the +1/+1 counter staying on doesn't matter as long as your creature's untapped to block, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty solid as far as +1. -2. Here's where the counters come in. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each other Planeswalker you control. So
pretty solid ability in a Super Friends deck. I have a lot of friends that are already drooling over this card. There's a combination with the Chain Veil in this card, where like Kiora and the Chain Veil, you can activate her negative ability again, and she'd still survive. And then, I mean, there's some pretty degenerate combos with the Chain Veil and, like, I believe Ral Zarek. I've got it up on. I think I just did a spoiler video on it.
Oh yeah, you can do infinite combos with Ral Zarek just because you can untap Chain Veil over and over again. So it's Chain Veil and Nissa, or Ral Zarek, Nissa, and Chain Veil, right?
Yeah. Yep, and you can throw in. I mean, Ajani kind of works in there as well to put the loyalty on every one of them to protect them. So if they have to use their negative abilities, they stay alive. But I mean, it's just one of those Magic Christmas Land type combinations is what I like to call it.
This is an EDH deck already, so you're already living Magical Christmas Land.
Yeah, yeah, it's perfectly fine in that. But I have friends trying to break it in Standard. I just don't think it's going to quite get there.
I'm not really sure. I don't know. What is that? That's blue, red, white. You get to play Supreme Verdict. So
yeah,
that's a big thing.
Yeah, blue, red, white would be. I mean, if you kind of want green as well in there for Kiora. So
yeah, so it's kind of like you've got your mana confluence, but it might not be enough.
Yeah.
To do
we'll have to wait and see what kind of fixers are in the next set.
Wicked.
But I mean, it's. I'm with you. Ajani Steadfast it's a cool card. I don't expect to see it much, if at all, in competitive Standard, but it'll definitely go in casual decks, EDH decks. It'll be a really fun card to actually play with in Limited.
And this is a 100% splash card in Limited, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. So wicked. So
and not too overpowered. It's one of the problems I have with Limited is when someone gets just an incredibly broken card like
like Elspeth in the white planeswalker world. Elspeth, the new Elspeth was just huge.
Yeah,
like you basically just lose.
What was it? M14. Yeah, M14 had Jace, the mill Jace. That card was just insane limited. You were basing on a 2-turn clock by the time you got milled out.
If you could protect it for like 2 turns, you just win.
Yep.
Cool. So ultimate's -7, so it takes us what 5, 6, 7, 3 turns to get there if we just sacrifice them for it. So you get an emblem. So if a source would deal damage to you or a planeswalker you control, prevent all but 1 damage. So the fact that it's a source and not just like any occurrence of damage hitting you is a little bit weird because someone can still hit you with like 21 ones and still do 20 damage to you. Which is
kind of underwhelming for an ult,
deck,
actually.
Right?
most ults, if you look at Planeswalkers, they put you really, really close to winning the game, if not flat out winning you the game. And this one seems very, very weak for an ult. But again, it's a fun little Planeswalker. I don't expect much out of it.
Absolutely.
People again are going to be trying to break it with the -2 ability. I think that's what they're going to be focusing on, because that is we haven't seen this in a Planeswalker yet that actually puts loyalty counters on other Planeswalkers.
And it kind of fits the Ajani theme. We've got a couple of other Ajanis down here, Mentor of Heroes, Goldmane, where the negative ability doesn't particularly win you the game. Like gain 100 life.
Yeah.
A creature's power and toughness are equal to your life total. Like they can put you a lot closer to winning or make you not lose, but they don't really win you the game like some other Planeswalkers do. Like a Nicol Bolas ultimate is just so crippling that they can't possibly come back from it, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Wicked. So let's move on to Soul of Theros. We got our 6-mana, 6/6 Vigilance White dude with 2 abilities. I guess they're like really just the same ability, except you can use one from the graveyard. So creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain first strike and lifelink until the end of turn. I think this is one of the more powerful ones, just because you got a 6/6 Vigilance dude with lifelink, and that's not going to die in combat, basically.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed with most of the souls. They aren't comparable to the Titans or even other mythic lines we've had in the past. But 6 mana, I think, is quite an investment just for a 6/6 that then has an ability. I mean, there's a lot of abilities on cards that are, I would say, equal to this that don't see any play. Even like Sunhome Guildmage is one of the cards I can think of out of Gatecrash, has pretty good abilities it can use. And I guess the one thing that gives these souls the edge is they do get value in the graveyard, which is just it's a plus. But I don't think it's enough to really make them playable. There's only, I think, the red one. We'll get to that one later, but I think that's the only one so far that we'll see a lot of play, if any at all.
Yeah. So to me, the Souls of Theros just scream Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. Every single one of them just screams Nykthos, because you're gonna have that like 15 mana in Magical Christmas Land where you need to get rid of it somehow, and this is a great place to dump that mana.
You gotta keep in mind that this is the exact mana cost as Elspeth.
That's true. So if and this one is going to be in the same set as Elspeth, or in the same standard as Elspeth forever. So you're going to play Elspeth over this. But that said, I mean, this is an insane limited bomb. Definitely play
it.
Oh,
yeah. All the souls are good and limited.
Exactly.
Even at 6 mana for 6.
Yeah.
6/6 is really...
in like every set but Innistrad, 6 for a 6/6 is really good.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's go into the Sungrace Pegasus. Some less interesting stuff, less mythic.
Killer card. Yeah.
Yeah, the Flying Lifelink 1/2. I'd rather have it as a 2/1. That's about all I want to say. If
2/1 would have been overpowered.
I'd rather be a 2/1.
That's a common.
But you can slap an enchantment on that guy.
It's going to be a great 5th, 6th pick, or what they call your 20, 21, 22nd card.
Yeah. It's got evasion.
It's going to go in decks. If you get it in your sealed pool and you're playing white, you're going to be playing it. Because the life swing is pretty significant, especially on evasion. I use the equivalent of the one out of Return to Ravnica, the 1/1 Flying Lifelink black one, all the time.
That's right. So it's effectively a 2/2 when it hits.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it can, block a 2/1 if you need to. Gain some life, kill a guy.
Yep.
Wicked. So Sanctified Charge. What does this one do? 4 into white for an instant. Creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. White creatures you control also gain first strike until the end of turn. So it's a little bit of a discriminatory combat trick.
Yeah, and these are usually decent cards, and they're very underappreciated, I would say, in limited. I think it was either M12 or M13 had a few of these buff your entire army cards that I would pick up very, very late with a lot of tokens. And they just flat out won the game. I mean, this isn't going to be constructed playable whatsoever. With 5 mana, there's so much better things you can do.
Yeah. But
in limited, giving all your creatures +2/+1 is pretty big if you go the token route. And it does seem like white has at least one, we'll get to it too, as one common that produces significant tokens, and an uncommon as well. I believe it's an uncommon.
This is a common. This one. Anyways, yeah. Shout out to John Medlin on the Mythic Spoiler page, who shouted out for Narnia. So that's pretty epic.
Yeah, they're both commons. Both the token producers are common. Yeah.
Oh, are they?
Nice.
Okay, wicked. Yeah, you're talking about what is it? We'll get to it anyway, but yeah.
Triplicate Spirits.
Absolutely.
Triplicate Spirits and Raise the Alarm are both commons.
Triplicate Spirits. Just a continuation of the inspired naming of commons.
I guess that's one thing we can talk about in this is different limited strategies you can go, and this Sanctified Charge will actually be a pivotal part of that strategy. And even Sungrace Pegasus, it's the perfect. You're not looking to be a traditional aggro deck and just flat out Zergum is, I guess, the term.
Yeah.
You're gonna build up an army and just do a one-turn massive swing, and Sanctified Charge is gonna be the engine for that. So I'm liking it. I'm liking White. White does seem pretty powerful. A lot of the stuff, though, I guess we'll get to that too. Their toughness is relatively low, which is kind of unusual for White. White has traditionally been a pretty balanced color.
Yeah, that seems fair. Let's move on to Geist of the Moors. This is our double white, so it's a little bit hard to cast in off-color decks, but it is a 3/1 flying dude for 3, so this is pretty playable, obviously.
It's very playable, and I could actually see this possibly making constructed play, just because it feels a lot like Herald of Torment in a white weenie deck, the same way that Herald of Torment is sitting in a black aggro deck.
That's true.
But there probably is. But again, this is Bramaz's spot. I don't know if you can justify running a Geist over Bramaz.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you can.
But in limited, I would actually go as far to say that this could be a first pickable card, if not a second or third. If you are, especially in pack 2 or pack 3, when you're already into white and you need. I mean, the problem with this though is there is a lot of 1 power flying creatures in the format that can take care of this. But
that's
still,
true. We just saw 1/2, so
yeah,
that might be pretty relevant. Exactly. So we'll keep an eye out for more like 1 power flying dudes who are like playable, who might run up to in Geist of the Moors. But I still think it's totally worth playing, especially if the format turns out to be as slow as people think it's going to be.
Yeah.
That can just race anybody. Oppressive Raise.
This and the next card, I'm just shaking my head. I don't understand. I know they want to use a balanced amount of cards from each of the planes, I guess, since M15 is supposed to, the core sets are supposed to cover cards from all of the planes, but we just had these cards barely printed last set. And I just don't understand it. And they're going to rotate. I mean, I don't know. Just a little pet peeve of mine. It seemed like there was a lot of Theros block cards printed compared to other of the blocks in the past, which, I mean, they could have found another 1 mana Aura that did relatively the same thing. I don't understand these reprints.
Totally. So yeah, I mean, it's a pseudo removal spell, I guess.
Yeah, I've actually liked it in Theros, but I don't know if it's going to fit as well because of the Aura comes into play a lot in the Theros block. It's not going to trigger anything in this block.
Exactly.
So
You're not
early, this is an awesome card. Later, they can just pay it. But it's a solid pick if you need removal. If you need, yeah.
Absolutely. If you're playing
every time I've played it, I wasn't disappointed.
If you're playing like a control-y blue-white thing with a bunch of flyers, you just need to keep their 2-drop bear from attacking you for a few turns. This is your dude.
Yep. Or even on the aggro, because they can't attack or block. So again, you can Geist of the Moors, throw it on their 1/1 flyer. Now they have to at least pay for it to
now
block.
They have to pay. Now they have to pay for it. So the Orseco's Swiftclaw, we just saw this card, 3/1, with a massive flavor text box for 2. It's very aggressive. Play it if you're aggressive. Not a whole lot to say about it. I'm sure you can check out a million Theros reviews or whatever to figure that out. It's
a great card in Theros, in that block.
Absolutely, and plus, another piece for your cat tribal. So there's that too. Pillar of Light, wasn't Pillar of White just came out too?
No, it was Reprisal, I believe.
Oh, okay. Very similar. So exile target creature with toughness 4 or greater for 3 at instant speed. I'd play this in my deck. I don't know if this is like a first pickable removal, but I think it's pretty decent. It's a bomb removal. So even if your dude is indestructible, like if it was one of the whatever those are called. I'm so bad at this already. I'm bad at names of stuff. But Battle Mastery, this is an interesting one for me because you've already got this on a creature in Theros block, so it's definitely not going to be in constructed. But it's the 3-mana enchanted creature has double strike.
You might see this in a Naya hexproof deck. I could see them putting it. I mean, it's a nice addition to it. I mean, they're already in the color. They want white for ethereal armor. But as soon as ethereal armor rotates out, Battle Mastery probably won't see any play unless we get a lot of hexproof creatures.
Totally.
I mean, it's a solid enchantment, though. Double Strike is very underrated.
Absolutely. Michael McCord says Hero Viroas agrees with this reprint, and I agree with him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the perfect target.
Totally ridiculous enchantment for 2. Congregate. So this one was in M14, right? Target player gains 2 life for each creature on the battlefield for 4.
Yep. So they're keeping it in for another round.
Yeah. So this was more relevant, I think, when Angelica Cord was in the same set.
Yep.
When you
there was a lot of life gain stuff. I guess there's a lot of life gain stuff in this set as well, but
there's 2, but I don't know if there's a get a 4/4 angel life gain effect. I might be wrong, but it seems a lot better in M14 than M15.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And white in M14 didn't tend to be as aggro as this one looks. So
that's true. A lot of aggressive creatures in this one. Ephemeral shields. Okay, well, this is the first time we're touching on the convoke mechanic. So this effectively can cost 1, and target creature gains indestructible until the end of turn. It can cost Dixie 0, right? Because you can cast with a white creature, you can tap it with white mana.
You can tap itself to give it. I mean, it's a cool little trick. If you have 2 creatures, it can be free, and you can actually tap the card that they would be destroying to give it indestructible.
Absolutely. So it can the whole convoke mechanic can be a huge surprise in this set. So you have to be on your toes for that the entire time. So this might be one of the cards you want to jot down before the pre-release, and just remember that if they've got 2 untapped dudes that are white, or 1 that's white, then they could potentially make something indestructible.
Yep. As far as constructed playable, you have Ajani's Presence. You've got a few other cards that I think would be there is one card out of M15 we'll get to that I think this goes perfect with, just to give it another go, which is the Hornet's Nest, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But just giving Hornets indestructible for turn just seems awesome to me.
Oh yeah, that seems ridiculous. I'm gonna draft so much Hornet's Nest, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
First response: the beginning of each upkeep, if you lost life last turn, put a 1/1 white soldier creature token on the battlefield. I actually really like this enchantment. This is the kind of thing that I would totally play in my stupid grindy decks.
Yep.
It's like if you can't block something, congratulations, now you're blocking something.
And it does say lost life, which is better than took damage, I guess.
Yes, because so if you're playing your demon that costs you life, I guess if you're paying life for that, you can get a creature out of it at least.
Yeah, exactly. There's ways to abuse this, and it's the beginning of each upkeep, so you can actually do this on both turns, and get, or an EDH, you could potentially
use mana
get a lot of
confluence for this too.
Tokens. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can totally slam that down and use mana confluence for it, even if they're not attacking you.
Yeah, it's a solid card. I may not see play in standard. You'd really have to brew around it, but I mean that's what I do. So who knows? I might try a first response deck. But it's a great card in limited.
Yep.
Never-ending 1/1s.
Absolutely, exactly. So, yeah, you're going to be making soldiers until you're ahead and they're not attacking you anymore, basically. Hushwing Griff. Now this one actually has a lot of buzz around it because they think it's like potential modern playable.
Oh, it's going in modern. I don't think there's any question about it. Flash flying and then it gets rid of enter the battlefield effects. That's huge in modern.
This is just, hey pod, we know you're super popular right now, but
hey twin and pod will shut you down.
Yeah, like the big 2 really. It's like, hey, check out my Hippogriff. Open up your monstrous manual and figure out what that creature type is. And yeah, so I mean, I think it's decent even in limited. I think it's pretty decent. You have to be careful that you don't nombo yourself if you're making a deck, but for something like a control
that is the
deck,
problem. Like the deck I want to put it in is Death and Taxes for modern, and unfortunately there is a few enter the battlefield effects like Blade Splicer. in Death and Taxes, and also Phyrexian Revoker. So you would have to swap them. If Hushwing Griff comes in, then those have to come out. This could go. I mean, this does shut down even like Snapcaster Mage, Vendilion Click. There's a lot of cards that the Griff. Soul Sisters. It really messes up Soul Sisters.
Totally.
So, yeah, it's a solid card, and I definitely think it will. I mean, Torpor Orb sees a ton of play in Modern.
Exactly.
Right now.
But this is just
Torpor Orb is a little bit harder to kill. Well, that's even debatable now with all the hate for Affinity. I don't know why people won't give up Affinity. I personally don't think Affinity is a good deck because it's just so easy to shut down, and you get so many draws in Affinity. Personally, I've played it, and you get so many draws where you have a handful like Springleaf Drums and Cranial Platings and things like that, and then no target to actually put it on or actually use with it, or handfuls of same thing like Mox Opal, Springleaf Drums, and then we saw at the Pro Tour how he lost Game 3 by a guy just keeping a hand with a Shatterstorm. So right now I think Torpor Orb is actually could be a little bit weaker than Hushwing Griff just because it is an artifact. So, but I mean, as soon as the format changes back over, Hushwing Griff will be a lot more vulnerable to removal than the Torpor Orb.
Exactly. Well, it dies to Bolt, right? So if it dies to Bolt, it's automatically a huge target. But yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword, but if you can find the right deck for it, you can shut down a lot of other decks.
Yep.
Boonweaver Giant. This is our white 7/7, or white 4/4/4/7, sorry. But the ability is actually kind of busted. So when it enters the battlefield, you may search your graveyard, hand, and or library for an aura card and put it onto the battlefield attached to Boonweaver Giant. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. So what's your standard aura that you put on this guy?
Right now,
what's the biggest,
Unflinching
baddest
Courage.
Aura? Unflinching Courage is huge. Are there any bestow creatures that fit that description?
I don't think Bestow would count as it's an aura card.
Doesn't count as an aura. Okay, so it doesn't count as an aura card. It's just an enchantment that becomes an aura when it's attached to somebody.
Yeah, I don't think it would work, but I'm trying to think. There might be some enchantments that I'm overlooking. That, I mean, I know there's one out of red that's +3/+3 in haste.
Yeah, let me just look at my list of standard cards real quick, and we'll find something. We'll find something cool. But while I'm looking for that, I mean, unless you've got something busted in your limited deck, this isn't really a card you want to play.
No, it's another probably EDH. Isn't there an EDH general that works off auras?
Probably. EDH isn't my strong suit, but I'm certainly
neither with me. I know I've played against an aura deck. I know there's that angel out of Avacyn Restored that goes in, Bruna. But I mean, this card existed before called Aura Touched Mage. Wasn't that what it's called? But this is a little bit upgrade. It costs, I think Aura Touched Mage was 6 mana, and it was like a 2/4-ish. And I don't think you get it from the graveyard. So you're paying 1 more mana for an upgraded power and the ability to get an aura from the graveyard, I believe. I might be wrong on that. I mean, I know that there's a card like this that has existed.
Okay, so in Standard, you can grab Righteous Authority. That's like a rare aura. I mean, it's not like Primal Visitation. That gives it 3/3 in haste. So it makes it a 7/7 for 7, which is, okay. Illusionary Armor, I suppose, is a thing. And that's really all that's like a super powerful type.
That was my problem with Bruna in Theros, is there just wasn't any good enchantments to put on it.
Yeah, a lot of the really good enchantments you want to put on, other creatures, like 1,000 Lashes would be great if you could stick it on someone else's creature. But
yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could grab Indestructibility, but then you just have a 4/4 for 7 that's indestructible.
Well, I guess this next card coming up fits Boonweaver Giant.
What is next? Spectral Ward. Okay, here we go. Enchanted creature has +2/+2 and protection from all colors, and it doesn't remove auras. That is pretty fitting, I gotta say. So if you're picking that one up,
for 6/6, protection from all color. Not quite everything like Progenitus, but I guess this could be Standard's Progenitus wannabe.
Yep, but only in one color, so that's even more important. Gotta say, the art is pretty striking on this card. I just love the rainbows ricocheting off of the
foil should look pretty sweet.
Yeah, so that will definitely be a cool foil card. Spectra Reward. Is this something that you would first pick out of a pack if you've got, say, this and let's call it, if you've got this and Geist of the Moors in the pack, which one do you take?
I don't know. See, I'm not a big Aura fan, even in limited, because what I really think this card needed was Flash.
Yeah.
But there'd be people arguing that that'd be too powerful. But 5 mana, it better be powerful. Most of the auras that in the past have been successful have been auras that either recur or you can somehow protect them to get them out.
Yeah, so you've got Angelic Blessing and Rancor, or are those the two that...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, it's if you can stick it, it's not really going to be a 2-for-1 because they're probably not going to be able to get you with it in limited. But if in response they remove it, obviously it's huge. And I guess that's the same for Rancor and Angelic Blessing anyway. But
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and I don't know. It definitely has potential to just take over the game. I guess it would be a solid bomb. Yeah, not really my style a lot of times with enchantments in limited, but yeah, it's a solid pick, I would say.
You know what? It might just be your card that you slap on a 3/3, makes it a 5/5 unblockable guy, and that's just how you win the game. So, I mean, I think it's a pretty powerful card to take if you're in white, and it might be a first pick depending on what else you see in the pack for uncommons. Avacyn Guardian Angel. So this Avacyn has huge shoes to fill. I'm going to say that right off the bat. Because that card is now like, what, a $35 card all of a sudden just because of EDH?
Yeah, I know. It's one of those cards that I've never played with in my entire life, and it just baffles me that it's worth that because, you know, I have like these competitive goggles, I guess. And I do play some EDH here and there again, but it's not typical EDH that other people play. Like my commander deck is pretty solid on removal and everything. It doesn't really have any.
You've got like you've got a bread
combos.
You've got a bread commander deck, bombs removal, evasion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is exactly what my commander. Well, it's very synergistic. I played Teysa from the old school Teysa, not the new one, and it's just everything has synergy with Teysa, and Teysa exiles creatures, so I can protect myself against every other commander basically, and every other nonsense in the format, and that's how I play commander. So when I see cards like Avacyn, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to try to reanimate or all these other stuff that you want to do to try to get it out.
Wicked. That's like almost the opposite of what my commander deck is. I play Chromat, and it's just 5 colors, whatever I feel like playing that day.
Yeah. All right.
So let's do Avacyn Guardian Angel, 2-3 whites. So you have to be in white to play this card, pretty much, or have very good color fixing. Flying Vigilance, 5/4 for 5, which is pretty sick. So you've got prevent all damage that would be dealt to another target creature this turn by sources of the color of your choice. So it's not all sources, it's just one color. So if they've got 2 spells, you have to use it twice, basically, if it's 2 different colors. And 7, prevent all damage that would be dealt to target player this turn by sources of the color of your choice. So in limited, obviously, 5/4 Flying Vigilance for 5, you're just going to play it.
Yeah.
You have to play it. It's just the hugest bomb. It's good on offense and defense. It's a slightly better Sarah Angel without the abilities. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to another target creature this turn is a little bit weak for me because it doesn't protect the actual angel, which is flavor, obviously.
Yeah,
and
I mean it's a plus though. I mean
it is a plus for sure.
First glance, I didn't like this card, and now every time I keep looking at it, I'm like, this card just fits perfectly. I mean, a 5 mana for a 5/4 Flying Vigilance is pretty good, and that one power makes a huge difference in at least a 5-drop.
Yep, totally.
And then the other abilities are just icing on the cake. I mean, they will come into effect every once in a while, and so I think Avacyn is a solid card. They will see some standard play. I think people can easily, and we have to wait and see what happens when a lot of the really oppressive cards from Return to Ravnica rotate out and the new set comes in to see if Avacyn will actually find a home.
100%. I totally agree. And the 5 is actually really important if Prognostic Sphinx becomes a popular card after rotation.
Yep.
So because it's a 3/5, this is something that can actually just punch through that card without having to worry about it. So that might be a factor. If that's an oppressive card in post-rotation standard, then this will be kind of the answer to it.
No more Mizzy Mortars, so...
Exactly, so it's just that much better. Obviously, protecting other creatures is pretty sweet, but it's just a solid creature without any of the abilities anyway. So, Constricting Sliver. People have mixed responses to having slivers in this set so far. What's your take on slivers in M15?
It's fine. It'll give them a little window to play I guess, better sliver deck. Than I still don't think that slivers will be constructed playable in standard. I have a lot of friends that are really thinking it's going to be a tier 1 deck with slivers, and I just can't see it happening with Bile-Blight in the format, and even Drown in Sorrow in the format.
Yeah.
Anger of the Gods, that kind of thing. Those cards just completely punish any sort of tribal theme, especially slivers. Slivers you have to have multiple slivers out. They're not, a lot of times they're not good cards in and of themselves. Exactly. They work off each other. These slivers have, this is actually the one that I think is the least impressive out of the other colored slivers, and this is actually the one that's getting the most attention, but 6 mana is a lot to invest in a creature.
So, question about this one though. It says sliver creatures you control have, when this creature enters the battlefield, you may exile target creature an opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield. What if Constricting Sliver is the first one to leave the battlefield before all of the other ones? Do they have to give the creature back, or is it just gone?
I don't know.
I'll have to ask the judge, but the way I'm reading it, it sounds like if you can somehow, if they board wipe or something, if you can sacrifice this creature first, give back the original creature, then all of the other creatures lose the ability.
Yeah.
Then they don't have to give it back. So that might be something to consider. Other than that, by itself, a 6/6 for a 3/3 with that ability, probably still playable and sealed.
Well, but this one actually, it might, the way the ruling might affect it is that maybe this ability always stays kind of active.
It stays as like a state
when it happens, so it almost imprints it onto it. Yeah. Even though they no longer have the ability, the trigger was still there, and so when they leave it, again, we have to ask a judge on it. It's very...
Absolutely. So if someone's watching this who's a judge or is just smarter than us, if you could just leave a comment, that'd be sweet. Because I'm confused. And I know someone's going to screw it up at pre-release, and it's not going to be my fault. Well, it will be my fault unless someone comments. Preeminent Captain, the 2/2 first strike for 3, which is already pretty sweet. But it's got an ability that just screams break me. Whenever it attacks, you may put a soldier creature from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. So you've got tons of options. I don't know what's in standard. Let's just check quick.
I was checking the other day and I didn't see many over. It's like you'd want over the casting cost to cheat in a big.
Oh, you want the hugest ridiculous creature
soldier,
you can find.
And it seemed like standard was full of soldiers that were white weenie type.
Yeah, so you've got the Boros Battle Shaper, which is your most expensive one.
Hey, there you go.
You've got your Palisade Giant, which is pretty expensive too. Foundry Champion is right up there.
Yeah.
So you've got some cool uncommons and like some sort of bulk rares. Lavinia of the 10th might be a cool one. Just as far as soldiers go, but I'm not seeing anything that's like super broken.
Yeah, no. What was it? Was Hero of Bladehold a soldier?
Hero of Bladehold.
Is that where I've seen this synergy before?
Let me just check. Maybe it is.
I think I've seen a deck that's the card they want to use Preeminent Captain with.
Hero of Bladehold. It's a human knight.
Oh, okay.
It is not a soldier. So we can't quite get there. But, I mean, if you're going to screw around, I mean, I'm sure this is going to be a really cool, like, EDH card where it's just like, haha, here's my ridiculous soldier from 15 years ago. That's
Captain of the Watch was a soldier, right?
Yeah, so that'd be a pretty sweet one. But other than that, I mean, it looks interesting, and it could just be 2 creatures for 3 mana for you unlimited, really.
Yep, it's definitely a card you'd have to brew around.
Yeah.
Again, it's Bramaz's slot, which is going to be...
Yeah, so in standard it's going to be tight. You've got so many great white weenies right now. I don't think that you're going to be playing this guy in the standard deck. Also, phrasing. You've got great weenies. Heal the Odds Pilgrim. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an aura card and put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. So it's just a utility 1/2 for 3 that really doesn't affect the battlefield so much as just gets you your busted cards. So it might be one that you really want if you get your sweet Spectre reward. But other than that, I don't know. I think it's just like a play situationally kind of thing.
See, this is a card that I think people are overlooking. It's just its value. Again, it says aura. If it said enchantment, it'd be a lot better.
Agreed.
But going back, there is some pretty decent aura cards, especially for commander. This is a perfect way to go get that flickering ward to protect your commander. Or I mean, there's plenty of the Umbra cards that are good. So I think that this might see some play because again, it's anything that goes and searches the library just begging to be broken.
True. Yes.
And
it just enters the battlefield. So if you flicker this, you can get multiple enchantments.
Yeah, exactly. Auras, so. And for 3 mana, that's not a bad tutor.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a tutor with a body. So
yeah, tutors with a body are good. Let's go on to Razorfoot Griffin. Is this just the 2/2 first strike flying guy for 4? Yeah.
Solid
fire
pickup.
Yeah. So it's the 23rd evasion dude. Now let's just move on to this Dauntless River Marshal. This is part of a sweet kind of rotation of cards. That's a color plus a bonus if you control a different type of land plus an ability with that land type. So I think that the Dauntless River Marshal is fine if you're just white. Just the 2/1 for 2 is just fine.
Yep.
But if you control an island, it becomes ridiculous.
Yep, a 3/2 for 3 and then for 2 and then the tap target creature is very very good. It's
a very strong ability. So I think you take this one if you're in white, and it might even be like one of the higher picks, just because it's a safe pick even if you don't get blue.
It
late
because it's still a solid 2/1. 2/1 for 2 is fine and limited. Especially the theme here is you have a 3/1 for 2. You have a 3/1 flyer for 3. White is definitely an aggro color.
Absolutely.
And then you have plenty of ways to pump them up, and it's perfect. Like that card is perfect for what you're going to be trying to do as far as limited strategies with white.
Absolutely. Let's go on to Warden of the Beyond. This is our 2/2 vigilance guy who gets +2/+2 as long as an opponent owns a card in exile. Which, as we've seen in white so far, there've already been 2 abilities that exile cards, and I know there's a premium removal spell coming up that is a exile card as well.
And the Pillar of Light was a decent exile spell as well.
Yeah.
Especially again, if we're going into that aggressive strategy, what usually beats up on aggressive decks is mid-range decks. They like green decks that go over the top. So you get in there early with maybe some white damage, and then all of a sudden they got a 4/4 out that nothing is gonna in your entire deck's gonna get through. That's where Pillar of Light comes into play. And then this guy again, it's a 2/2 first striker for 3. That's fine and limited, and it has the chance of becoming bigger. So I think it's another solid pickup. That I mean, white so far is just screaming of just value, and I'm liking it so far.
Yeah, value on value, and this card is uncommon for a reason. Obviously, they were playtesting it, and they found that this ability is stronger than it looks at first. So I think it works well with the other cards in the set. And actually, I just noticed this, but there's like dudes screaming ghostly and like these mirrors and stuff. So that's pretty sweet too. All exiled. That's cool. He's all happy because he's got exiled dudes.
Some of the other colors have exile as part of casting. We'll have to look at that later on. The servant, the one that sacrificed, or do you have to exile it to add mana? I think it's exile, not sacrifice.
There are effects in other colors where they exile their own creatures for effects.
I think so.
Okay,
and
well,
so that might be another reason.
Then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, return to the ranks. It's got convoke, so it can effectively cost, I guess, 0 if you have enough creatures. Return X target creature cards with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So what's that card from Gatecrash? Immortal Servitude.
Immortal
Servitude. Is this
Servitude.
better than Immortal Servitude?
No. Yes and no. This is actually my favorite card out of the set. So if you guys are interested in seeing a whole overview of this card, this is actually going to go up for GatheringMagic.com. Asked me to do a review of my favorite card from M15. So yeah, that's gonna. I talk about the difference between Immortal Servitude and this pretty extensively in that video, so I'll have to link that when it goes live.
Absolutely.
On Gathering Magic. But these type of cards are the cards that just scream. They're Kevin cards. They're Rogue Deck Builder cards. These are the ones that I look at and I build an entire deck around.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's powerful enough to do so. One of the biggest differences between Immortal Servitude is it's a one-time payment. So if you need to bring back all 1-drops, it's 4 mana, and all of them come back. So 5, 6, 7, 8 creatures come back. So you're going to want to play in a deck where you're guaranteeing a lot of creatures in the graveyard. This just seems like more of a value card to me, where I've got 3, 2 or 1 drops in the graveyard. All right, so 5 mana, get them all back, and it's a great card. I think it's going to see probably not significant play, but it's definitely going to be either in sideboards of white weenie decks, or you'll find some players like me that will just completely brew around it. And I've already done a few decks with it that brings back a lot of 1 and 2 drops that most likely will get into the graveyard and let you have another swing with them.
Absolutely. And the thing I like about this one is that it's not specific to 1 mana cost only. It's 2 or less. So you get your 1 cost, your 0 cost back as well. So you can play your Festering Newts with your Voice of Resurgences this time, and you can get them both back. If you're doing
that was one of the problems in Immortal Servitude that I was having was, I'd want to brew a deck that got a ton of cards back, but I'd want a nice curve of 1 and 2s.
Exactly. You want your Deathrite Shaman, and you want your Voice of Resurgence, or you want your Blood Artist.
Exactly.
And so this lets you do that. You just have to pay a little bit more mana if you want them all back. So I think it's pretty sweet. I think it's from what I've seen of the cards in White so far, 2 or less, there's a lot of value. So I think this is a perfectly good card for a limited environment.
Oh yeah.
Wicked. I'm just gonna sneeze. You have to edit that. I might not actually sneeze now that I've said it. Oh, that's unbearable. Okay. Spirit Bonds. Just a second. Man, that's brutal. Okay. Boom. We're back with Spirit Bonds. It's an enchantment for 1 and a white. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay white. If you do, put a +1/+1 spirit creature token onto the battlefield with flying. And you can sacrifice the spirit and target non-creature spirit gains indestructible until end of turn. This card is pretty sick. I think this card is very sick.
It's an upgrade to extort. I mean, it's kind of the extort ability. But even if you don't even look at the sacrifice, I made an entire tribal deck with spirits with this card. And of course, that means that you're not going to be able to utilize the sacrifice of spirit to give target non-creature spirit indestructible. And I still think the card is good enough to play. And that's just a bonus ability if you don't put it in a tribal deck. I just wanted to try to make a spirit tribal deck because there's so many tribal. With Door of Destiny still in standard for a little bit longer, and now the new artifact that we'll get to, the Obelisk, that gives all creatures +2/+2 of the chosen type. I think that tribal might be fun to at least try to pilot, see how it works. But in a this doesn't have to go in a tribal deck whatsoever. I mean, you're getting any creature comes into play, you get a 1/1 white spirit creature token, you pay an extra white.
Absolutely.
So it turns all of your cards into one of those.
Cost 1 more, get a white creature spirit, and it's the fact that the spirit creatures have flying is just what puts it over the top for me. If they were just on the ground, it would be value and you'd play it, obviously. But this is like, okay, play my useless 2 mana cost 2/1 that is no longer relevant, but boom, evasion creature, and it just like So that's what does.
And
it
then
for me.
Protect that same creature for 2 more mana.
Yes. So surprising nombo with like other spirit token decks. So if you're doing like your what is it? I just had the name of the stupid card. I'm so bad at names. Not Intangible Virtue. Good with Intangible Virtue, bad with Lingering Souls. So if you're playing Lingering Souls, you can't actually get more spirits with your spirits. You can't exhibit. You can't pimp your ride with your Lingering Souls. But I mean, it gives you huge value in limited, and I would first pick this card 100%.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. This would be a bomb in limited.
So the Meditation Puzzle.
Sideboard card.
You gain 8 life. Now that's just something that doesn't really appeal to me. So.
Yeah, me either. I think people overvalue life gain, especially newer players. I see people all the time at my local game store. One of the things I do is at my local game store is I'm kind of the guru on deck building. So people always bring their deck and be like, "Hey, can you help me?" And I always see main boarded life gain.
Yeah.
And then because they're like, "Oh, well, it saved me," and people, yeah, it might have saved you that one time, but actually how long it was just rotting in your hand while you could have been doing something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a decent sideboard card against any red deck basically that wants to reduce your life total from 20 to 0 as quick as possible.
Yeah.
But against any other deck, it's just not worth mainboarding. So I mean, you'll pick these very late. I would think in limited, even though most limited decks are going to try to get you by damage, but it doesn't help you it doesn't change the board state whatsoever. And it doesn't even really help you stabilize by removing a threat.
Yeah.
It's just gaining 8 life.
Exactly. So I feel the same way about Fog. This is actually worse than Fog effect, but it should just read target player loses next turn. Really.
Yeah.
This is gonna be the last card in the pack almost every time, I think.
Yeah.
Now, Mass Calcify on the other hand. This card is just hilarious. So just destroy all non-white creatures for 7. Sorcery speed. It's not the best board wipe. It's like the worst board wipe in Standard when it comes out. Pretty much.
Yeah. Commander will like it though. At least mono white Commander decks will love this card.
Yeah. Commander will like it, and limited, I don't know. It really depends on your deck.
I hate 7 drops in limited.
Yeah, so
7 is like the evil number in limited that you never hit.
Absolutely. So this is like play at your own discretion. If you're playing sealed and you're running a super sluggish deck, this might be
18 lands. You better be counting on 18 lands if you're gonna be running a 7 drop.
So this is play at your own risk, I suppose.
Yeah.
I wouldn't first pick it, but I would first pick this Devouring Light.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, This is like a potential surprise exile target creature. Like, come on, that's crazy. That's so good.
Yeah, but I can see this making even Standard play.
Oh yeah.
I do like Celestial Flare a little bit better because Celestial Flare protects you against hexproof and indestructible deck. Well, this actually does against indestructible, but at least against hexproof.
Yeah.
But yeah, that exile is very key. Exactly. I mean, yes, the creature still does have to attack or block, but this is Magic. That's traditionally what creatures do.
That's what they do.
So
the important distinction between this and Flare is that it doesn't get hexproof and it doesn't get Blood Baron. So, I mean, those are two an archetype and a huge card.
Blood Barons can be gone. It doesn't get a Stormbred Dragon either.
That's true. So it misses things you would put Flare into your deck from the sideboard for. But as far as white removal, I think this is pretty well set up.
And then again, Convoke. Convoke is just dirty with if when you're tapped out, that's just a huge opening for your opponent to do whatever they want to do. They're basically like, oh, no combat tricks. No, I can freely swing in. I can freely, and then you're like, gotcha.
No, you don't.
I mean, that's what I like about Magic. I like these, and then once you do it one time to your opponent, they're gonna be playing around it the rest of the match.
Exactly.
And I love cards like that.
It shifts perfect information from you're tapped out to your hand is empty, basically. So you're not going to have perfect information if they've got cards in their hand in this set, which is really interesting. And it makes this core set a little bit harder than some of the previous core sets.
Yeah.
So this won't be one where it's like, I'm a brand new player. What set should I play? You'd be like, just go and play Theros. This is too hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally play this. I just noticed something interesting about the reminder text, though. The first line says, your creatures can help cast a spell. I don't know if that was necessary to put in, but I think it's cute. I think just each creature you tap while casting the spells pays 1. But your creatures can help you. That's also good. Also good. let's raise the alarm, shall we?
It's every time it's been in standard, it's seen play.
This is a new art, is it not?
Yep.
Okay, so
I think so.
This is an updated art, and it's just put 2 white soldier creature tokens on the battlefield. Boom, instant speed.
Instant speed is huge.
Pretty cool in a deck that plays counter spells for sure. So you can do this at the end of turn if they don't cast anything relevant. You can just pick bam. Soldiers.
And it's good versus, on the flip side, it's good against counterspell decks as well because you can do it at the end of their turn.
Exactly.
And then they either have to count it there and use their mana, leaving you open for your 3-drop like Bramaz or something, or you get to slam the 2/1/1 white soldier tokens out.
Yeah, I agree. So, I think this is I don't know if it's going to see main board play, not right away, but it might just be see a sideboard play against control decks kind of thing.
Well, every time this has been in standard, I think it's been more than once in standard. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but cards like this have, and it's always been in a white weenie deck. Now we are missing like Honor the Pure, but I think there's enough, and especially Convoke. This is basically 2 things that tap, add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool or a white to your mana pool to cast Convoke spells.
Yeah, the fact that it's 2 bodies instead of 1 body is huge for Convoke.
People have been already talking about how messed up of a card the Obelisk that we'll be getting to is. So
wicked.
The 6 mana Convoke, and this is just a nice little enabler for it.
Okay. So Solemn Offering is another one of those cards that I think was way better in M14 because of Angelic Accord.
Well, yeah, it's so good in standard right now. This card, I've been mainboarding this in a lot of my decks in standard.
You've been playing this over like Deicide and other similar.
Yeah,
effects?
just because of the 4 life can be relevant, and I guess Deicide would be better. The deck that I have it in right now is an Angelic Accord deck, of course.
It's obviously better in that deck for sure.
There have been a couple of decks that, like even Eidolon of Great Revels with the burn.
Yeah.
Where I went up against a burn deck and he cast that, and then I'm like, that's Solemn Offering it, and then
that's legit.
Got value on life gain back, and
yeah, that's a legit case for Solemn Offering. You can totally get the Eidolon. So I like that. I still think it's better when Angel of Accord is in the set.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
That's just going to be every single life gain card in this entire set. So, Selfless Cathar. Now this is a card that I've only played with on Duels of the Planeswalkers. But on Duels of the Planeswalkers, it's a pretty significant card just because it's an onboard combat trick. So obviously you get to play around it when it's out, but it really complicates combat math for people.
Yep.
So I think as a 1/1 for 1, you're not going to do much better for a 1/1 for 1.
Yeah, it's the perfect 1-drop actually. Now that I'm looking at, we haven't seen a 1-drop yet until this one. So yeah. I think that you will need to actually pick these a little higher than you usually would in limited, as there isn't a lot of options for 1-drops.
Yeah.
In fact, now I'm looking at, this is the only 1-drop for white.
Okay, so yeah, you heard it here, folks. This is your 1-drop. It's your human cleric. You can't surprise put this guy in because he's not a soldier, so you can't use Preeminent Captain to put him in and then sacrifice him right away. Which is just a fancy trick that I just thought up, but you can't do it.
Oh, there's one other 1-drop, but this one's clearly better.
Word. So on to the wall theme of M15. You've got Wall of Essence, which is just a 0/4, gains you life, is a defender. Pretty solid card. If you're doing the white control-y deck, I'd say rock it, but I don't think this is worth putting into aggro deck.
Yep, and as far as standard is concerned, I think that the RAM is just better.
The RAM guaranteed gains you life.
More consistent.
Yeah, and it's 0/5, right?
Yep,
oh, yeah,
0/5, and it's going to get you that 1 life.
So much better.
But I mean, it's a great splashable card. I don't think that white. This is kind of a weird. Now looking at white, I think the only real strategy you want to go with white is more aggressive, of course, depending on what you have in your pack. But if you're going to be using Wall of Essence, then you're probably going to be into blue or black as your other color.
Exactly.
And then this will help stabilize you against, when we get to red, I'll show you why this card will probably see a lot of coming in from the sideboard if you do end up drafting this or have this in your limited pool, because red is insane on how aggressive it is, and Wall of Essence will be the card that puts a stop to that.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, I don't know, it's just seems decent. It does combo quite well with Ajani's Pridemate though.
Yeah, you don't want them in the same deck though.
It's true. It's true. Whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on Ajani Pridemate. This dude just screams 2-drop Pridemate, 3-drop Corsair, 4-drop Giggle.
Yep.
So
this is one of the cards that I was so excited because again, my go-to deck out of Modern for the past forever, I guess, is Soul Sisters. Soul Sisters won me a PTQ, so it's always gonna have a special place in my heart. But this was the best card, or is the best card in Soul Sisters, hands down. It's the most consistent card. I always like to see it in my opening hand. Of course, we don't have the Soul Sisters in Standard right now, where, you know, the thing with when this card is synergy with Soul Sisters is you cast a Soul Sister on turn 1, and then Johnny's Pridemate turn 2, and your Pridemate's already a 3/3. And then if your opponent casts anything, it becomes a 4/4. So we like to call it the White Tarmogoyf.
yes,
Because it gets very big very quickly, and your opponent, it's a terrible feeling to have to use a removal on this, like an Abrupt Decay on a 2-drop. A lot of times that, you know, you have to burn that very quick. It gets out of Lightning Bolt range very fast.
Yep.
So in Modern, it's such a solid card. But I think that you're right in Standard. I think there's plenty of cards that actually work with this without going into the like RAM strategy, which I've heard people try to say that it has, you know, good synergy. I think like Hopeful Eidolon, first turn, and then second turn pop a Giant's Pridemate and then attack for 1. Now it's a 3/3, and then you've got it Corsair Crew Fixed, or Scavenging Ooze for the time being is a nice little complement to it.
Yeah, you've got a lot of ways in Standard right now to tick up 1 life. So that
you still have the Angel.
Yeah, and you've got the Angel still. So that does that double counters or just add? No, that's adds
well,
a counter.
It'll give him 2 counters every time you gain life.
Yeah, so that's pretty insane too.
It'll fit in that deck, and that deck has been gaining steam. You have cards like Tide Drinker, Extort.
Yep, you've got a lot of ways to just kind of tick that guy up, and this might be the card, just because it's so cost effective, that does push those decks into competitive Standard.
Yeah, like Blind Obedience. I've been wanting that card to see more play than it does. Extort. This card's huge with Extort.
Oh, totally. So the Kinsbale Skirmisher, the 2/2 for 2. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gets +1/+1 to the end of turn. This one is a legit combo with the rare Kithkin, and I think it's just a, you know, upside bear. Upside bears are so good all the time. So just play it, right. This will get one. This will get at least one guy through in your attack when you play it. It's another one of those cards that you like. A 2/2 for 2 is pretty poor late game, but this one actually does something for you late game. So you're gonna want to see it, right? Midnight Guard, the 2/3 for 3. When another creature enters battlefield, untap Midnight Guard. I don't know. This is an Innistrad card, right?
Yeah, one of the either Innistrad or Dark Ascension.
Yeah, just looking at the art, you can tell. I'm not sure how I feel about the card. It's sort of
combos with Splinter Twin.
Oh no.
They've used it. There's an actual white red Splinter Twin deck that you see every once in a while in Modern.
Oh no. Okay. Sure.
I think they use actually Village Bellringer over. I'm not sure, because Village Bellringer can actually combo with Kiki Jiki. So, but I mean, yeah. So if they do print a Splinter Twin like effect, Midnight Guard will be the.
That would be the standard combo. I don't see them doing that, but I would love if they did.
Yeah.
So you've got your Soul Mender. You've got your Soul Mender for your Ajani Pridemate.
Yeah. Again, I don't think you really want these two in the same deck.
No, but
I'm not sure.
That said, this card is the only one that I'm going to say is better in M15 than it was in M14.
Yeah. Yep. It does have a.
Just because it's got the correct target. Because one life isn't going to do anything for you in M14, but in M15 it does. It seems to do quite a bit. So this might be a dude you actually get to play.
Yep.
Healing is more of an art than magic. Well, there's still quite a bit of magic in it. Awesome. Let's go on to Tireless Missionaries. When it enters the battlefield, gain 3 life. Not worth it.
Again, this is going to be one of those cards that is going to be more of in your sideboard. And if you go up against red, you put it in.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's the two themes that we've really seen with white. Not surprisingly, it does have the either hyper aggressive or the really, really, really stall. And I mean, you can make decks that are a mix of both that can sort of prey on, like in limited, a lot of times it's a lot of back and forth. And so you can, if you're going up against aggressive deck, you can just let things go unblocked, and then on the backswing, keep ticking down. So you're doing consistent damage to them while consistently gaining life, and they're only doing damage, and eventually you grind them out.
Yeah. So if you can get into that groove of get attacked and then attack back
on the draft table of an 8 pool, someone's going to be able to go a bunch of stall cards, and someone's going to be able to go hyper aggressive white. So it's a good mix.
Yep.
So, and I think they did a nice, perfect balance of the two.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I'm not going to take it highly.
Yeah, neither am I. It's not my.
Do we have any more?
It's not my strategy.
Interesting cards coming up through white. I'd like to rattle through Divine Favor. We've seen it before. It's a
million times.
Decent enchantment, gains you life, no big deal. Resolute Archangel. People have been talking about playing it in control just because it's just resets you. It's still got huge competition in Angel of Serenity, which is just a better, better card, right?
I'm not impressed with this card. Again, it's so what if it gets your life total back? I mean, in certain situations, yes, against burn, that's awesome. But there's so many decks, especially in standard right now, that resetting your life total is not going to do too much. If you're losing the game, you're losing the game, and there's a lot of times when I lose a game, it's because I'm out of cards.
Yeah.
And they've got me locked out. This card is just kind of delaying the inevitable. But in limited, it'll be fine. 7 mana, again, is a lot to invest, though. So, again, people are like, oh, it won me that one game when I was down to 2 life, and I finally had this 7 mana to cast this. And then I look at me like, well, if you could have cast a 4-drop, if that would have been a 4-drop in your hand, you would have...
If it was a 4 you could have blocked the attacks forever. But I think in limited, this one is playable as a bomb in your white deck. I think I would play this one.
Yeah, again, though, your minimum 17 lands. A lot of times I don't like to go 17 lands in limited. I'm more of the player that likes to play 16 or lower. I really like a fast, aggressive curve because there's so many decks and play styles you can just prey on.
Yeah.
And again, this is in white. In white, with cards like Oreska, Swiftblade, it's just begging me to go fast.
That's fair. Is this is the pre-release promo for white?
I think so. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's not pulling me into white for pre-release. But that said, I mean, it's a 4/4 flyer for 7, which is okay, and then it gains you a ton of life, and it does gain you the life. So even if it sets it to a number, that the life gained is still the difference. So if you have an effect that is based on the amount of life you gained, it does change it that much. So Paragon of New Dawns. Okay, so this is the Paragon set. So other white creatures you control get +1/+1, and then you can tap it with the white mana to make another target white creature gain vigilance until the end of turn. I like this card. I think you play this card in your white deck.
Yep, I mean it's solid. It's a Anthem ability.
Yeah, it looks like they tried really hard not to make these broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 4 mana does that. Anthems need to be a lot quicker than 4.
Exactly. So I don't think this is a constructed card, but I think if you're heavy into white, or even fairly heavy into white in a limited deck, you just play this card because it just gives you so many options. Ooh, okay. So this is an interesting one. The Seraph of the Masses is the Convoke big creature for white, and it's just a flyer for 7, but with Convoke that has power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control. So you're going to be playing a deck that has a lot of creatures in it because you're going to be convoking this card out early, and then you're going to have a 3/3, a 4/4 flyer for fairly cheap on like turn 4 or 5.
Yeah, again, you're investing. You got to keep in mind you are investing your creatures to tap.
Yeah, you're investing your early attack to bump this out early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree there. So it is a balance.
But it could be worth it. And it's one of those things also that keeps getting bigger the more creatures you cast. So it's not static. It's not when it enters the battlefield, it becomes the amount of creatures you have. It's one of those things later on, if you end up casting other Raise Alarms, it gets pumped by that. So it's pretty solid. I don't think you'd ever think of this as a 7-drop. It's going to be 5-drop minimum.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And this might actually, like you said with Raise Alarm, you'd have to consider that before you block this creature.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing too. 2 more. Marked by Honor, which is just enchanted creature gets +2/+2 in vigilance for 4. I don't like it, but I don't like creature enchantments.
Yeah, and the 4-drop enchantment that has been traditionally good in core sets was Mark of the Vampire, because that lifelink was just amazing.
Lifelink is huge.
Again, this swing.
Yeah.
And you'd usually want to put it on, back in those days, on unblockable or evasive creatures.
Yeah.
And this is just... I mean, Vigilance is actually pretty good. It's a very underrated ability in Limited, but again, creature enchantments, I'll pick this very, very late and begrudgingly use it if I have to.
I like that description. I think this character would be a really cool character for like a D&D setting. I love the armor elephant thing.
Yeah, that's great art. Too bad it's wasted on a
on a card that doesn't do much.
Well, yeah,
okay, triplicate spirits. Convoke, put 3 white or 3/1/1 white spirit creature tokens on the battlefield with flying.
Insane for a common.
Yeah,
insane.
Yeah, it's pretty good for a common. 3 power worth of flying, with the possibility of casting it for fairly cheap. Especially in a deck that looks like you would have a bunch of really cheap creatures, seems pretty strong.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we know how powerful Spectral Processions is. Other than Spectral Procession will come out a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was an uncommon. This is something, if you're going in that strategy, you can kind of guarantee they're going to get a couple of these. Hopefully, get a couple of these. And we've already seen the pump spells such as Selfless Cathar. And again, the Sanctified Charge. So I guess you could go in a sort of stall type strategy until you do drop down to triplicate spirits, and I mean that's pretty much game in a few turns if you have some pumps and whatnot. And then going back to that Paragon as well that pumps up all white creatures.
Absolutely.
I really like triplicate spirits. Jeez.
Yeah. So yeah, now that you've mentioned all of the ways that this card gets better with the other white cards in the set, I think you've made a good case for triplicate spirits. Just with the chance to give it +1/+1 or give it +2/+1 in indestructible and first strike. Like these are all really, really huge swings with this card. So I think I don't have any last thoughts about white. I think you're right. It's got the 2 sides of the coin. It's got the super aggressive aggro-y side. And it's got the slower life gain, block creatures, and dick around until you can get some of your bigger spells online with Convoke. So, yeah, wicked.
Very solid color.
Absolutely. And this is a color that's going to see a lot of play paired with other colors.
Yep.
So it's going to be like, okay, I've got these 3 really good white cards I better splash for because some of them are actually really good.
Never count on going one color in Limited.
Oh, absolutely.
I see so many new players try to pigeonhole themselves in one color, and 2 color minimum. There's been times I've been able to pull off a monocolor deck, but those are few and far between.
Absolutely. That's your 4 gray merchant deck. It's any black creature, just put it in.
And you can't, and you're shaking your head of why those were passed.
No doubt. Cool. Yeah, so let's move on to a different color, I suppose. It will be.
Want to do a separate intro for that?
It will be blue. I do want to do a separate intro for that, but I want to do an awkward outro for this one too. All right, people, join us in blue. Awkward intro.